bracket. So we'll be looking forward to.
All right, this is John Krasinski, Pittsburgh Soccer Now. I've been doing a wraparound, talked to some coaches already in the WPIAL, soccer coaches, that is. The playoff brackets were released today. We are now talking with John Cantwell, South Park's head coach, who represents 2A and really, honestly, in my opinion, one of the most competitive sections in all of soccer, high school soccer in our area, with that boys 2A section. I think it's section 2, right, in class 2A. Help me out here, John.
Section
Yes,
1.
Section 1. Okay, I get all those numbers mixed up, but anyway, it's great to have you. Just great to have you on here. Obviously, this is always an exciting day. The brackets are released, and South Park. It was your section race was so close and so competitive. At the end, Elizabeth Forward kind of jumped over both you and beat went ahead of Keystone Oaks as well. And so you guys are a 7 seed. You will play Waynesburg Central. I guess all of the 2A boys first round matches are going to be played on Monday, October 26th. So what are your thoughts on your selection or seeding?
Well, like every coach, right? You want to be seated higher, and you have opinions on where you should be seated. But I think generally where we landed was pretty fair. I mean, I think if you want to be in the top 4, you got to win your section. I think the committee has shown that over the years. You had a couple of teams tie. Actually, 3 sections. The other 3 sections, aside from our section, were all ties. So you essentially had 7 section winners. So going into it, based on what I've seen from historically the committee has done, I anticipated we'd, maybe get a little bit of love and be 6, but I think 6, 7, 8 was, what we kind of thought we would land up. And, obviously the story in 2A with Quaker not being in the bracket to, defend their championships, probably moved us up. Otherwise you probably would have introduced me as 8 seed South Park, I think, this evening.
Yeah, for sure. That's a storyline that, picked up a lot of steam the last few days. I think Friday when we all heard about it, we still weren't sure what would happen, but as it played out, Quaker Valley just unable to field the team for this. North Catholic's going to go. They're going to go and try to go with their JV team. I think that's going to be a challenge for them. They will have to take on. I believe they're taking on Ligonier or Leechburg. I'm sorry. So anyway, so your matchup, you've got Waynesburg Central. Just talk about what you know about Waynesburg Central and really what you need to do to prepare your club to go on Monday.
Yeah, so we ironically were supposed to play Waynesburg on Monday night, and given I think what a lot of teams have done when you saw some of the cases really starting to accelerate in some of the different counties, the story of North Catholic and Quaker, and even some of the others in other classifications of Latrobe and Hempfield that we all hear about, right? We were all really keeping our pulse on that. It just saw no reason to play that game. The irony is we'll end up facing them in the first round, so we'll play them anyhow. But it just didn't seem we've used the term bubble, much like the professional teams, right? We're just trying to maintain our bubble, and I think a lot of teams did that. You just tried to stay within your section. We only had 1 non-section game this year, which felt very odd. But to answer your question, don't know a lot about Waynesburg. We played them a year ago. They had a really talented player a year ago in Gavin Benson, who's obviously not back. He was a handful. We'd played them the last couple of years. But what they always do for Coach Blair is they work hard. They pressure the ball well. They've typically been a team that's very good in the air. And I don't know if it's just the community down there and Coach Blair's background in wrestling. They're tough, strong kids. It's never a simple game against them. So, I expect a hard-fought match. I expect they'll show up and play us physical and leave everything they have out there.
Yeah, you talked about not having that opportunity to play those non-section matches. We're looking at Deer Lakes and Shadyside getting the top 2 seeds. Like you said, there are some sections that have just garnered, I guess, more respect based on their accomplishments in the past few years. But your program is well established, and you've been doing, it goes without saying, South Park, people know that they're going to be in for a really tough match, no matter where you are seated and what year it is, that sort of thing. But I mean, I've seen enough you know, the streaming action of some of your matches to know that when people play South Park, you're gonna play, you're gonna get out there and you're gonna play, you're gonna knock the ball around and you're gonna play possession, things like that, right? I mean, you want to try to play as free flowing as much as you possibly want to, right?
We do. We pride ourselves on trying to keep the ball. Pride ourselves on trying to play the game the right way. Sometimes your opponent will force you to not be able to play the way that you want. But I think most of the times we are able to, build out of the back. Utilize our midfielders, and have some. We have some dynamic players up top that make some good runs, both on and off the ball, to kind of disrupt the other team's defense. So I don't think the formula will be much different. But obviously, as we start to play, if we're fortunate to get past Waynesburg and see other teams like the Deer Lakes and North Catholic that's on our side of the bracket, they'll force us to adjust. They're very good programs.
Yeah, I mean, what do you expect with this year's playoffs? Do you expect anything different? I asked a couple of the other coaches this similar question. Is tactically, even just in terms of how you use your depth, and just based on the fact that you've just gone through this 6-week dash through the regular season, does anything feel different, or are you just kind of taking your usual approach?
No, that's a good question. I would say nothing had felt different until the last week. I think when you start to, really kind of see this, I'll call it a sobering story with Quaker Valley, to think that, it's could have been any of us, right? Still could be any of us, right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing, that you're kind of on your edge of their seat, right? It's not necessarily, something that may happen within your team. It might be something that happens within your school. So, we say, I've always said as a coach, it's kind of cliche, you play like there may not be a tomorrow. And I think that usually went in one ear and out the other of most of my players, but, the past 19 years I've been coaching. But, I think there's some reality to that this year. So maybe we'll see a different level of urgency, but the playoffs are always intense. I think maybe the only difference you'll feel in the postseason is the finality that still exists maybe in the semifinals that hasn't in the past, right? You were able to get to the semis, and I'd say be a little bit looser because you knew your season wasn't ending that night, which is not the case this year given the reduced state qualifiers. If you lose the semifinal, you're out. So I think that might bring a different level of intensity for that game, but you were always playing to go to the WPIAL final. So I don't know how that game could be less intense, but there'll be something there. I think there'll be a little bit more, heartbreak maybe for two teams than there had been in the past.
Yeah, for sure. It just, again, for those who haven't seen your team play this much this year, or don't know that much about South Park, just maybe give us a snapshot of, what some of your leadership as far as your players, and what we might expect from your group, and just a little bit more about the players.
Sure. Yeah, we have a good balance across all the classes. I think we have someone in every class in the starting lineup or contributing. So not not completely senior led, but also have some freshmen that both start and see significant minutes. We're fortunate we have 4 seniors that have played a lot of varsity minutes for us over the last 4 years. 2 of them are our center backs, and Ryan Luffy and Peyton Pauline. Joe Irwin has sat as a holding center midfielder for us. It feels like for 10 years, but he's only been there 4 years. We had his brother for 4 years who played a similar role. So it feels like that spot has always been occupied by someone in the Irwin family. And then we have Dylan Weiss, who's been more of an attacking player for us over the recent years, either in an attacking center mid or, up top for us in one of the forward positions. But this year's been different in that we've gotten some really quality minutes from freshmen. I've never really had a bias. I think it's more been about the depth of our program. We haven't had to necessarily rely on freshmen maybe as others have, but we have some really talented freshmen that have really forced their way into the lineup, and Cam Loveland and Caden Fisher. They've really started from the beginning of the season, and they're impactful players. They're not just filling one of the spots because we need to put someone in the lineup. They're impacting the game, which is, fantastic. Can only imagine where, their careers will go. But, we're very fortunate to have them kind of come in and supplement a good core that was coming back from last year.
Yeah, having that core group, having that spread out across classes, especially at the 2A level. We see it a lot more at the 2A level and the 1A level. It helps, and it also kind of builds that, next man up when those players are, juniors and seniors, that they've had that kind of, they've been through some of those battles. And I know one of the things that we'll see is, I've seen a lot of Shadyside and Deer Lakes in the past few years, and know that that's kind of been, there's been a lot of progression with those teams like that. But your program has, for to be a 2A program and to be able to run a lot of juniors and seniors out, that's also a really good thing as well.
Yeah, I think we've been conscious over the years about always thinking ahead too. I've never been one about running up the score or anything. I would be fine with winning a game 2-0 and making sure we got underclassmen time versus winning that game 4 or 5-0 and letting a senior runner, their goal tally up. That's just never been what we've been about. We've always been, thinking who's going to contribute a year from now, and not taking away from maybe seniors that are, they feel like, it's their time now, but, certainly making sure that, we're looking ahead.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So last question is going to be I'm just eyeballing, seeing the matchups in 2A,
Sure.
and obviously a lot of great matchups, but I'm sure you could speak for your own section. So I'd love to get your feedback in terms of, you've got Keystone Oaks, Elizabeth Forward, you've got, and you got some good teams there. Trying to feel like I'm missing one more team.
Avonworth.
That's right, Avonworth, who obviously stepped up this year from 1A to 2A, and just your thoughts on those clubs and their chances moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually seen everyone. I could probably comment on 1 through 16 if you wanted me to. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, specifically in our section, Keystone Oaks is, very solid 1 through 11. They're led by their senior forward, Rutger Randall, who, is, tireless for 80 minutes. He works all over the field. He's in the air, in the midfield. He's scoring goals. He's getting back to help them defend on set pieces. And I think his energy is kind of contagious, for them. Another center midfielder, very skillful as well, that they kind of run through. So, I think they'll surprise some teams. They have a solid lineup and a really good goalkeeper as well. Elizabeth Forward's kind of led by a trio of 3 pretty good attacking players, and Donovan Watosik and Andrew Smith, and then Ethan Bowser, who I think is really their most dynamic player. First time we played him, didn't really see much from him, just kind of where he was, tactical, in the lineup for them. The second game, he was the difference maker. He was without a doubt kind of led them to that victory. He was all over the field, distributing balls, putting balls on the frame. I think there'll be a handful to defend. Elizabeth Forward, they get forward very well as a group. And Avonworth is really an interesting team. They're solid right up the spine. Really good center back, 2 really dynamic center midfielders, and a goalkeeper who really displayed some really good hands. I thought the times that we played them. I think they're going to be kind of a nuisance. I think they're going to hang around, and someone may not expect them based on their record. You're going to see this 4-6-2 record, but you look at
they're going to play Charleroi, so that'll be an interesting 4-13 matchup.
Yeah, their scores have been close. They're, I think aside from maybe an Elizabeth Forward 6-0 win, their games against us and Keystone Oaks, and even Steel Valley, who landed up on the outside, was a good program.
Mm-hmm.
Their games were close. They find a way to hang around, and I think they have a couple of dynamic players. I got a kid whose last name I'm forgetting, Dexter, in the center midfielder, just maybe one of the best players I've seen on the ball this year. It's just really talented. So, I would hope our section can surprise some people. It'd be great to see all 4 of us in the quarterfinals. I had mentioned a few weeks ago to someone that, we had that tough stretch last week, but I thought it would get us ready for the postseason because we were playing 3 playoff teams.
Hello. Absolutely. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up here. But John, I really appreciate your time and being able to, I know it's a crazy day. You were out doing some training. The brackets came out, and you and I were kind of going back and forth. And as I said earlier, they moved the release date back an hour, and I think it shook us all up a little bit. But we're used to it. So, all right. Well, any final thoughts on the playoffs? As final thoughts on what to expect?
Excited. We, I'll just speak on behalf of coaches and everyone. Really appreciate the coverage that you provide for our programs and our players. It's, I know our kids are really excited about it.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. And again, thanks so much for your time. And we'll be talking soon. I'm sure as the playoffs go through, I'll be in touch with you for sure.
All right. Great. Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks. Have a good night, John.